What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com. So in today's video, we're going to use the extension 5D Plus in order to quickly automate the setting up of views for creating plans from your SketchUp models. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. All right, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to take this modern house model from AIVA M. We're going to import it into SketchUp, and we're going to use 5D Plus to automate the process of creating all of your different views. Now, this tool is a lot more powerful if you start from the beginning and model things with the proper IFC classes and things like that. I haven't had time to create that separate model, but I wanted to show you just how powerful this can be just for creating those initial views, which you can then take into layout. You can look at the example models that you can download for more information on how they should be modeled if you are going to model things that way. Okay, so we've downloaded this model into our space, and let's go ahead and we're going to draw some ground in here as well. So I'm just going to use the rectangle tool and just draw kind of a ground plane in here like this, and we'll go ahead and delete this out so that we don't have Z fighting and flashing going on in here. But now we've got a ground plane, which I'm going to double click or right click, and I'm going to make it a group, and then I'm going to drop some 2D plants in here real quick. So just look for 2D plants or 2D trees. Right here, this collection from Daniel Tal is a really nice collection, so you can kind of bring this in off to the side, and I'm just going to right click on it and explode it, and we'll just pick a couple of these to keep. So we'll get rid of most of these, and we'll just keep 4 of them. And I'm just really quick going to drop a bunch of these on this surface using the move tool in copy mode. And then I'm just going to take all of those trees, I'm going to select them in the outliner, and I'm going to put them in the group. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I want you to understand how setting the views up in 5D Plus works and how you do it when you've got a larger model in here versus having just a model that's a building right here. And by the way, we're not going to talk like way in depth in this video about the organization of the models. So if you want to learn more about how you should actually organize these so you can set up like structural drawings and things like that, you should definitely click on the little gear in here and go to the user manual. And so in the user manual, there's a lot more information about how to group things and set them up. And so if you download the example model, you can see that the way this model is set up, it's got your different levels modeled out, and then within the levels it's got other things in here like doors. But the biggest thing for what we're doing here is definitely having the different levels on different groups. And so you should definitely check out that user manual if you want more information about that. But I'm specifically going to show you how to use this dialog just to set up your views so that you can quickly create plans from this tool. And so we've scattered the trees, and now what we need to do is we want to create this where it shows our different levels, right? This is a multiple level building, and we want to set this up where it's going to, when it creates plans, it's going to create a floor plan, a roof plan, or a second floor plan, and then a roof plan. Right? And so the way that we want to do this is we need to start by going in here and we need to set levels or stories. And you can do that by clicking on the little plus button right here for your building information. So what that does is that allows you to set the heights above ground of your different stories. And so in this case, right, we can set our height of our level 1. Well, the height of our level 1 is going to be, we need to measure it from kind of the ground plane, right? So our ground plane is down here, and our height of our level 1 is going to be 9 foot 10 inches. So that's going to be 118 inches right here. And then notice how this gives us the option to set a cut height. Well, that cut height is going to be the height above ground in here that this is going to cut through, right? It's going to basically create a section plane automatically. And so we're just going to tell it, okay, we want you to take this cut and we want you to put it at about, we'll call it 7 feet high. That's going to be 84 inches right here, right? So now we've got our first story. And then we want to add our second story. So our second story, you're not setting the height above ground when you set the height for the second story. You're just setting the height from here to the roof, right? So in this situation, we want our second story is going to be 11 foot 9 3/4. So 141.75 is going to be our height, right? Over here. And we want our cut height to actually be the height above this level right here. So remember 118 started right here. So I'm just using an edge to figure out like, okay, I want this to be 84 inches is probably fine right here. So what we've done is we've provided this with information, and the information is your ground is at level 0. Your first story has a height of 118 inches, and it starts at level 0. And our cut needs to be at 84 inches. And then our second story has a height of 141 inches and has a cut height of 84 inches above this level right here. So now what we've done is we've set this up where we can create views, and make sure that you click on the save button right here. So now we've got our levels set up, and we can use this tool right here in order to create scenes for all levels like this. Okay, and so now let's create a few different scenes. And so to start off, when we create a scene, what we want to do is we want to click on this button right here. That's going to give us the ability to auto create scenes. And in this case, let's start with just our general views. So notice how you can set this up where you can create an individual view, or you can check the box for multiple views right here, or you can click in here to create all of the views in one section. In this case, let's go ahead and create our modeling view, our 3D view, and our top view. So to do that, we're going to click on the one-click button right here. Well, notice what that's going to do is that's going to go through and that's going to create 3 scenes in your model. It creates a modeling view, which is going to be just kind of a high-level modeling view that shows you everything in your model. It's going to create a 3D view, which is basically going to be an overall 3D view that has the entire bounds of your model in here. And then it's going to create a top view, which is top-down. Now, you can control the size of the view when it's created or where the camera is by controlling your selections. So let's say we go back to our 3D view. What I want to do is I want to click on this building right here, and I just want to select the building, nothing else. And so when we do that, now notice how if we click on one click, it's going to ask us the type of scene we want to create, as well as if we want to hide the rest of the model. Because we had this selected, it's now asking us, okay, do you want to create a scene with everything overall, which is the building option, or a detail scene, which is only going to include your building right here? And in this case, I'm going to say detail, and I'm going to say hide rest of model, and we're going to call this 3D building, right? We're going to click on OK. And actually, we may just want to call this building. We're going to click on OK right here. Well, notice what that did is that created 3 more scenes, but this time they were isolated to just what we had selected, and the bounds reflect that. So when you select something in your model, your bounds are set up based on the overall area of the thing that's selected, right? So our building is kind of framed right here. So now we have a building view as well as an overall 3D view like this. And so this is fine, but it's not especially interesting, right? So what we want to do now is we want to go through it and we want to create our other views. And so we can set our elevation view, and we can also create our section view right here. Now remember, before we do this, we want to select our building, because if we don't, if we do this from our overall 3D view and I create a front elevation, right? We're just going to call this building front, and we'll call it large. So this is actually going to call this building front large in the scene view right here, but we're going to click on OK. Well, that gives us this larger view of my model, which if that's what you're going for is fine. But if you only want the 3D building to show up, you can select this, and we could pick front elevation right here, and we're going to hide the rest of our model. And in this case, we'll call this building front small, and it's going to add a suffix to this, so that's maybe not necessarily what we want, but notice how this framed this with that building being selected. So most of the time what you're going to want to do before you create these scenes is you're going to want to select the building. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I want to create all of these scenes at once. So I'm going to delete this out right here, and we're just going to go to one of these views and select our building, and I'm going to go ahead and check the box for both elevations and sections. So when we do this, we're going to click on the option for one click right here. We're going to set these to detail versus overall. We're going to hide the rest of our model, and we're just going to give this the prefix building and click on OK. Well, notice what that does is that goes through and that creates all of these different views. It creates all your elevations. It creates your building sections as well. And it does it really quickly. So now you have all of these views in your model ready to go, either with layout, or if you just decide to print something out from here, you can do that as well. Now, one thing that's interesting is if we go back for a second out of auto scene to our front page right here, you can tell this to create a level grid. So when we do this, we're going to create our level grid right here. That's going to create grid lines off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and select my model. I can't remember if it really matters or not in this situation, but I'm going to go ahead and click on level grid right here. I will say label both. Click on OK. Well, what this does is this automatically creates these elevation or level views right here with the heights as well as the dimensions in here based on what we've told it. So notice how that added it to this building section view, and you can just come in here and do the same thing over and over again for all of your different section views, which is really cool because you can then take these over to layout, or you can also adjust them here. Now there's some integrations with Curic Section Cut that I don't fully understand that can make this even better, but notice how this does a really good job of adding those grids in here like this. Now, can I do this with every single view at once? I don't know. I haven't tried that. The only way I can think that that might work is if I was to select all of these and then click on level grid, but I don't think it's going to do that. Yeah, no, it's only going to do it for the active view. So you just have to come in here and click on OK. Okay, so now we've gone through and we've automated the creation of our elevations and our building sections, but we still haven't created a floor plan. Okay, so up to this point, we've been selecting this and using the detail function when we create our scenes. However, one thing you might notice is if you try to come in here and create an architecture plan like this, and you leave this set on detail, it's only going to cut through one level like this, which is not exactly what I like. It also has a section cut fill in here that's basically cutting across the whole building, which is not necessarily what I want. So what we're going to do instead is we want to select this building, and when we click on architecture plan right here, we want to set this to be a building scene. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to give this the prefix FP. But when you do it as building, what it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to create scenes for both levels like this. Right, so this does a much better job of coming in here and creating those multiple different floor plans with section cuts if you select the building option rather than selecting the other option. The other options aren't going to work because we just took this out of the SketchUp 3D warehouse instead of modeling something our own with tagging set up and everything like that. Again, if you want to learn more about how to do that, check out that example model that you can download from the little gear up here. That's going to show you a lot more about how you can set this up in order to create those plans. All right, so at this point, I mean, you've got your floor plans and everything else set up, and note that we don't have everything grouped in a way where you can really take advantage of things like the structural plans or anything like that. Now, the ceiling plan is interesting. You could definitely come in here and create a ceiling plan. So we could select this building right here. We're going to pick the ceiling plan, and we'll go ahead and we'll do a building right here so that we get multiple different views. But notice how this is going to give me a reversed view of my stories right here. So it's basically looking at this upside down. So you can get ceiling plans in here if you want to take those and label them inside of layout. Now note that there are tools in here, and honestly, I have not gotten this 100% figured out yet. So there are tools in here to do like auto annotation that are supposed to be able to come in here and add like floor labels based on materials and other things like that. I still need to look into these because I'm not 100% clear on exactly the way that they work, but there are tools in here to do that as well. But for now, what I would do is I would take this over into layout. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to save this. And by the way, I would recommend when you're working in this that you save as you go, but I'm just going to do a file save. We'll purge unused, and then we're going to do a file send to layout right here. And when we do that, we can just pick one of our templates, right? One of our page templates, whether you have a preset template or if you want to use one of the SketchUp ones in here. And I don't think I've brought my templates over into 2025 yet, so we'll just pick one of these architectural, we'll go ArchD landscape right here. So what that's going to do is that's going to send a viewport over into layout where you can select these different scenes. So notice how all those scenes are going to show up. So this can be our level 1 floor plan. We can create a new page for our level 2 floor plan right here. So you can just click on duplicate and you can pick this scene right here, and then I would go through and I would label this. And you can find out more about the way you can do that inside of the SketchUp Essentials course, but I would probably want a viewport layer as well as a dimensions layer. So I like to put my viewports on a layer, and then I can lock them so that they're not going to move around. And you probably do want to make sure that this is actually to a scale before you do this. You go to SketchUp drawing. We're going to pick a scale like 3/16 or maybe something a little bit bigger. I think we can fit a little bit more on this page. So we go ahead and set something like this. We could lock that viewport and we could start adding dimensions, right? So just want to make sure we're on the dimensions level. And so then once we've added some dimensions, we can select those entities and just go into our dimensions style. And we're going to set our precision to something like 1/8 of an inch right here. So we're able to quickly add all of these different scenes in order to start creating plans. And so 5D Plus is really great for automating those views really quickly. So this did a really good job of setting those up. And I could actually add like real building data, like heights of levels, instead of just like randomly throwing section planes in. So definitely some cool stuff going on with this. One thing I would recommend is I would highly recommend going into the SketchUp forum and looking at the 5D Plus thread in here, because there's a lot of development going on in here and a lot of really good information. I haven't been able to sort through all of it just with the amount of time that I have, but this is a really interesting extension for setting up documentation and starting to work with documentation inside of SketchUp and layout. All right, like I said, that should at least give you the ability to get started with this tool, but you can dive way deeper. And I definitely recommend taking a look at that sample model and looking at the way that's set up, because there's a lot of cool stuff you can do in there with that. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Is 5D Plus interesting to you? I just love having that conversation with you guys. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.